Good morning, guys. My name is Ryan, and this is my stock market update for 6/8, covering what happened on 6/6 on Friday, or 6/5 on Friday, and then what I think about going into today. So Friday was a monster of a day. The indexes were all up. I've got the complex up right here, and that's an all-time high. Uh, More volume than the day before. Looks good. I mean, we're in an uptrend until we're not. There's nothing bearish about this market. Um, I've looked at a couple historical examples. I think it would be normal to get some choppy action near this high, but I think it would be highly abnormal at this point to get a serious sell-off. I think something around like I think what happens most time in history when you V-shape like this is choppy action in the all-time highs until the 50 pulls up to price somewhere in here, and then the market will tap the 50, get support, and then we'll run higher. Um, I believe we're in a bull market, and I would maybe even dare to say a raging bull market. So I don't think now's the time to get bearish, and I'm not bearish. I'm quite bullish. I do think we could get some headache here in the short term, and it'd be perfectly normal for this market to pull back to the 20-day moving average, which from Friday's close, that'd be a 4% sell-off, which can really hurt. So by all means, are we at risk of a short-term pullback? Yes, but I would have told you, I would have said we're at risk for a short-term pullback a couple of weeks ago. So I don't like to predict things. I like to interpret things because I don't have a crystal ball. You don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. But we can interpret the action. And so far, the action can only be honestly interpreted as bullish. So I'll cover what I'm in and then some plays that I like. As far as what I'm in Apple. Got a nice little gain in Apple. It popped. I'm a seller between this beneath probably Friday's low at this point. That'll ensure I make money on the play, and that's also going to end up being the short-term moving averages. I'm in Adobe. I'm gonna try to hold Adobe into earnings as long as it holds up. Adobe would have to close below the 21 for me to reduce it. I'm in Amazon. Same thing as Adobe. It would have to close below the 21 for me to reduce it. As long as it's above the 21, I'm not touching this position. I do think one could buy it if it were to hit a new high on some strong volume, but I'm not going to buy it personally. I'm just going to hold what I have because I have a pretty decent position size in Amazon. I originally bought it on this day right here, and I've been sitting in it for a while. So I've got a nice cushion in Amazon, and I'm not trying to push my luck. I already bought it right here at like $23.50, so I've already added on in this area. BioMarin, this is one I'm going to try to hold until the end of the day because it trades volatile despite doing over 1 million shares a day. My buy is at 95, so as long as it holds up generally, I don't want to sell it, and I want to see if it can higher low. Because if it can higher low, I think this could turn into a really special stock. So I'm in a position where I'll either make a small gain on it, or if it were to higher low and go higher, this could be a big winner for me. So we'll see how this trade goes. And it's one I could be selling today or reducing maybe the position by half if it gets weak. Just because if it's weak another day, it'll probably pull back pretty sharply. Domino's, this is one I would cut today if it's weak. Say by 9:30 in the day, if it's not looking anywhere above 370, I'm going to go ahead and cut this position for break even to a small gain. My buy is somewhere around 370. DaVita, this is one that I bought on Thursday, added to it yesterday, big up day. I'm not going to touch this one unless it's below yesterday's open. I'm going to see if this one turns into a winner. Dexcom, bought this on Friday, about 3/4 candlestick. I'm a seller below the open, and I'm adding on if it's green today. Facebook, I didn't touch Facebook, and I'm probably not going to touch it. I'm a seller around the 20-day moving average, and as long as it holds up above the 20-day, I'm going to hold Facebook and see if it can turn into a winner because my buy is around 210. Melly, my buy is at 750. I'm not touching this thing unless it were to have a really weak close by the end of the day. And this is one you want to wait till the end of the day because if I had sold it midday on this candle right here, I would have been pretty sad because it rallied back by the close. So I'm going to give it the full day, give it its respect. I've got the cushion to do it. I think Melly could be a winner, so I'm going to treat it like a winner until it stops acting like one. Microsoft had a good day on Friday. I actually added a few shares as the candle engulfed, and I'm going to try not to touch it unless it closes below the 20-day, and that's why I added on. I've got a general rule for myself that if I'm willing to sell the stock, which if this one's below the 20, I would sell it. If I'm willing to sell a stock, then I'm also willing to buy it. So I bought a few shares because it caught where I would sell it. This is easy. Netflix, I'm going to either be buying more of it if it's green today, or I'm going to be selling if it's undercutting the open. Service now, that's the exact same story. I'm buying more of it if it's green. I'm selling it if it's below the open. I'm holding it if it holds within that range of Friday. PayPal, I'm not touching this till the end of the day. Probably a break of the 21 would make me sell. Regeneron, as long as it's above that 21, I'm not selling this thing. And I might be buying a little bit if it were to have an updated day. I bought Tesla Friday near the close. I'm a seller, probably beneath this, like right here, open. So I'm not willing to give this thing a lot of room because Tesla's such a volatile stock. I didn't buy a very big position. So I'm probably willing to only give it about 3. And then I would just rebuy it when it bounces because I think Tesla could be a big winner. But I don't want to, I'm not really willing to let Tesla wiggle a whole lot on me because it's not prone to big down days. And I'm not sitting through a big down day. So I'm a very weak holder of Tesla, but I am in this right now. Vertex, I'm out of this thing if it's below yesterday's low. I'm selling it maybe even the first 5 minutes of the day. Or if it's green, then I'm going to hold it, and if it closes above that 8-day moving average, which is this red dotted line, I'm going to actually add shares and make the position bigger. So this is the only loss I'm currently sitting on. I'm down on this position. My buy is at like 272 or something, so I'm down 2-3%, 2-ish, 2.5, and I'm not, like I said, this thing's got a short leash. I'm not messing around. I don't own stocks that are below the 50-day moving average. That's a rule of mine. So if this thing's below the 50 today, I don't want anything to do with it. And lastly, I'm still in Zigzy. I bought a few extra shares yesterday, around $20, I guess Friday. And my whole position's at 1987, so I'm right in here. I'm not touching Zigzy at this point unless it's below the 20-day moving average. I'm going to try to let what I have in there stick because I think Zigzy could be a real winner, and I'm going to try to give it its respect. So that's the plays I'm in. That's my current strategy with what I'm doing on those stocks. And then just to go quickly, I kind of mentioned a little bit, but this is what I did on Friday. I added a few shares to DaVita at the open. I bought a few shares of Dexcom on Friday. I added a little bit to my Microsoft position. I rebought my ServiceNow position. I sold this on Thursday, rebought it somewhere around 380-ish, a little more on Friday. And then I started a small buy in Tesla, and near the open, I bought a few shares of Zigzy. And that's what I did on Friday. I didn't sell anything. Big up day. I don't usually sell on big up days unless I see exuberance on my charts, but nothing I'm in looks really that exuberant to me personally. So that's what I mean. Like maybe if I was in a stock like ASML, I might have taken some off the table because that's been hot, but none of my stocks were hot last week. My stocks were generally chopping sideways to curving up at the end of the week. Going into today, there's a few stocks I really like. Tandem Diabetes, if this were to be getting above the 8-day moving average, I love this setup. I love the company too. So I really like this one. Nautilus, it's kind of a cheap stock. I usually don't buy stocks under $10, but I do like how tight it's acting, and I like how powerful it's been on the way up here. So Nautilus is one that I think is a buy if it gets above $7 and is holding that. It is volatile though, and it's a cheap stock, so I wouldn't take a big position in it. I still like this stock. Luminex, I like it because I think this is half of a cup that's forming. So I wouldn't buy big because it's the bottom of a base. But if you look at the weekly chart, there's some supportive weeks here right underneath the 10-week line. This was a stock that was real powerful during the coronavirus sell-off. Goes up, tags a new all-time high. Now it's pulled back about 25%, and I think it looks supportive on the weekly chart. And it looks controlled minus this gap. If it can get above these short-term moving averages, I might start a really small, like say 1/5 of a position, and just see if I can get it to stick and see if the right side of a structure forms. So I like this thing. I'm watching it. Livongo, this is one I was actually in. I bought it this day, and then I tragically sold it this day for a gain, but clearly right before it bounced. And I think it's trading tightly and probably going to go higher. It's volatile though, so I wouldn't buy big right here, but I might buy some if it's breaking out. Repligen, this is one I was into. I bought this at 110 and sold it, I think on this day for like 112, 115. I didn't make much on this thing, but I did play it. It's catching at the 50. I think if it were to get above the short-term moving averages, that's a buy. It's like a cup type base that broke out and is now pulling back to the 50. And if you follow O'Neill's work, the first tap of the 50 after a breakout is a buying opportunity. And so, or at least a low risk buying opportunity, because you sell it below the 50, you buy it right in here, and it works or it doesn't work. And then I still like Chegg. I don't know if I want Chegg yet. I keep losing money on Chegg trying to get back in it. I bought it originally on this breakaway gap and then sold it for break even on this huge shakeout. And then I bought it again, sold it Thursday, and I didn't rebuy it Friday. I think Chegg's going to eventually work, but typically in the stock market, you don't get paid for being early. You get paid for being right on time. So this is one I'm watching, but I'm not that excited to buy, even though it might be time to buy it. And last play I kind of like is Royal Gold. Royal Gold's been trading pretty tight, broke out at kind of this cup type structure, pulling back to the 50. Got a doji on the 50. I think gold's up this morning. Yeah, gold's up a little bit this morning. Silver up. Silver's up slightly this morning. So there's a chance that this thing gets above these short-term moving averages and keeps going. And so I'm keeping my eye here too. That's everything I'm looking at. I think in summary, the market's bullish until it's not. And at this point, due to the amount of strength we've seen, I think the bias really has to be towards buy the dip. And then if the market keeps grinding, which the market can grind, that's, if you look back in November, the market can really grind. And then if you go back to 2017, you get this grindy uptrend that if you don't just buy, like if you don't start wading in, it's impossible to get in. Mark Minervini calls this a lockout rally. And we have seen, and we could continue to see a lockout rally for another couple of months potentially. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying it has happened in history. So because we're in a lockout rally scenario until we're not, if I was cash, I would say buy in 15% today. And I wouldn't buy big, and I would only buy pristine setups like some of the ones I mentioned. And then I would wait and see if those stocks hold up, and if those stocks build a cushion, then I would slowly start wading in more and more. If we started pulling back, I wouldn't necessarily buy right away. I'd wait to make sure that the indexes are going to hold up at these short-term moving averages like they have been. But if I see supportive action, like say we pull into the 20-day like we did here and we get reversals, I would buy stocks. And that's my thoughts. So as always, do your own research. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't give advice. Don't take anything I say as advice. I'm just talking about what I'm doing, and maybe you can learn something from it. Good luck today, guys. Let's crush it, and I'll talk to y'all soon.